Everyone back there. Hi, I'm Daniel. I brought my emotional support crab. This is Nova. There's going to be a demo, and it's going to be tricky, so I thought I'd at least try to appease the demo gods early by bringing a crustacean. So I'm Daniel, son, brother, father, uncle. I created Tauri with my friend Lucas about 5 years ago, and it's been a wonderful ride as we sort of developed our community, developed our code, and along with that, I represent the board of directors of the open source community in the Commons Conservancy, which is a Dutch foundation, and I'm also the CEO of Nebula, which is a partner of Tauri. I've been doing volunteer work my entire life. It's been about 20,000 hours, which I think is an interesting testament to also how I've lived my life. I feel it's really important to give back, and I think that open source is one of the best ways that we as a community of developers can do that. And I have not been on social media for over a decade, so good luck finding me. Tauri, what is it? Okay, up there's a QR code. If you have not started Tauri on GitHub, after the talk, come up to me. I have a t-shirt with Nova on it for you. If you star the repo. We don't need the stars though, because it's not really a popularity contest anymore. Tauri's been around for a long time, and it's taught a lot of people how to use Rust, how to think about software as something that's continuously being complete, being done. Tauri is a framework that helps you design securely. It offers really best practices from the beginning, and there's things like from the JavaScript ecosystem, about tree shaking where you remove parts of libraries that you don't need. Tauri 2.0 does that implicitly by forcing you to opt into features that the operating system needs for your application or ignoring them for those that it doesn't need. And all of this is, in service of two things: making small binaries, like less than 8 megabytes. A couple of weeks ago, we saw someone make something 500 kilobytes on Windows. And if it's small, it's not just more performant, safer for the downloads, but it's also more secure. If you're not shipping the APIs to communicate with HTTP, you remove an entire class of attack vectors from your application. Additionally, because we use Rust in the back end, or the core, as some call it, you have access to all of the threads on the user's machine, which means you're not limited to web workers or single-threaded processes anymore. In Rust, we say it's blazing fast. I think it's safe, and I do enjoy it. I use Tauri too. Some people in the community are like, why don't you just do a PWA? People can download it. But then you have others who really just want a frickin' binary, right? PWAs are an important technology. They have pushed the web forward, and I'm not hating on them. There's a lot of use cases for them, except on iOS in Europe starting March 7th. If you heard my talk yesterday, the Digital Markets Act has forced Apple to perform some type of compliance that isn't exactly what we were all expecting. Sorry. What is Tauri made of? So Tauri is a Rust core. It's basically like a harness for starting up the application. Once you have an application in the system, you need to create a window. So we use a library called Tau or Winit, depending on your flavor. And that creates a window that generates the keyboard accelerators, like Control-C, creates the menus. Then once you have all that, you need to put something in the window, and that's what RI or eGUI or WGPU do. They inject a context, like a web view. That's what we use on the different platforms. Generally speaking, we offer people the opportunity to just interact straight with a web view. The system web view. That's why our binaries are so small, because we're not shipping the same browser all the time. We expect the operating system to keep its standard web view up to date and current. you've seen create React app. It's basically the same thing. You can like instantly create a Tauri app. Right now, if you follow that command, you'll just get a 1.x Tauri. I think we're at 1.6 right now. If you wanted to create a 2.0, you'd have to like -- beta or wait till the stable release. Like I said, we've been eyeing Servo from afar for about 5 years. We just concluded a research project with our friends at Servo and financed by NLNet, NGI, Horizon, and the European Commission to work on a prototype so that you can actually use a Servo web view in the Tauri context, which for a lot of people is quite interesting, even though the technology still needs years to mature. And finally, as I was mentioning earlier, we have a plugin architecture that gives you full JS and Rust APIs. So if you want to, like I was saying, use the HTTP API and avoid all the CORS issues that you normally have from a website, then you can interact with that from the JavaScript API, passing messages across the boundary to the other side. I'll show you a diagram in a second. Or you can call it straight from Rust, which is in some cases more convenient. Now, Tauri is made by about, well, I want to say 15,000 people are contributing. Everyone who's part of the community I consider to be a contributor. And we do have a volunteer working group of people from the community who've contributed to the project, who get involved and work on the Discord, answering questions, filing issues, working on pull requests, and anyone from the community is welcome to join the working group. Just talk to us on Discord. You can find that pretty easily, I'm sure. We do have a foundation. That's the group that has the moral stewardship over the code base and the community and the trademark. We did this in order to prevent things like rug pulls or license changes or investor money coming in and changing things. Basically, the way it works is the working group decides who is a member of the board of directors. If the working group decides that the board of directors is not doing the right thing, they can remove the board. It's a hedge against bad things happening to an open source project that we all care deeply about. It's also interesting to see a lot of contributors coming in for drive-bys, and that's a great thing because they're solving their own problems, and that's like the promise of open source and why we even started this thing in the first place. And I have to say, the Rust language group, the upstream contributors, all of the projects that we're consuming, I think right now we have about 400 crates. Of a tenth of those are ones that we manage, and then there's a bunch of node dependencies that we also use. So, like, it's part of a community, and that community is very large, and we're happy to give back where we can. And in some cases, we will also adopt abandoned node modules or crates in order to keep them alive for the community. So I promised you a little flowchart, and I'm going to try to walk you through this, right? So at the top, you have the Tauri logo. That's basically, imagine it like your .exe or your .app or your APK. And that is like the bootstrapping event that says, hey, all right, I exist. I need a runtime. Creates the runtime in Tauri. And then what it does is it, like I was saying before, creates a window context with Tau, injects then the content into that window from Mirai, communicates with the operating system to make sure that everything is working, and boom, you have an application running on your desktop. This is like, it's a little bit more complicated than this, especially when you start thinking about the various contexts between a developer mode and a final build. And I think that the nuance here is that we sort of expect that if you're using a web view, you're using a modern framework like React or Solid or Vue. And those systems have their own development servers. They have their own HMR. So in development mode, we just let you spin up your dev server for your front end. We help you manage that if you need help doing that. And then you get your automatic HMR in the desktop, in the mobile devices. And it does get a little bit more complicated, right? So I was talking before about how plugins work. And this is a model of the mobile environment, where if you remember, when you create code in development mode, it's full of debug assertions, and maybe you have console logs, and what we do is we take the code that you've written, we pass it through our code gen, and that creates the ultimate function pointers that you need inside of your application. So we're not shipping a runtime, we're shipping an actual bytecode executable. And the context is the part of this magic that glues it all together, right? So if you know you're in a Tauri context, then you can define the hooks that the system interacts with, and then you run the event loop. That's this like main loop that just runs forever as long as the application is active. And for our integration with Android and iOS systems, we're using Java, Kotlin on Android, and Swift on iOS. And yeah, okay, we wrote everything in Rust to make you more productive. But if you have Swift code, you can integrate it right into the application. Same thing with Kotlin. And our plugin system operates similarly, where the plugins will then extend the features of the actual runtime. That was a lot. So what about security? People decide to use Tauri because of the security guarantees of the Rust programming language, because you have memory safety, you have type safety, and that's great. And then they think, well, I'm using a safe framework, I don't need to get my software audited because I'm a good programmer. And I can tell you, there's so many mistakes that happen between the keyboard and the chair that it's really important to get somebody else to look at your code. Just because you're using a safe framework doesn't mean that your application is always going to be safe. Nevertheless, we verify our security posture continuously. There's a feature, some of you know about it, on GitHub. When you have an action, you can actually run a daily action to audit your dependencies, right? I think that that's a simple thing everyone can do. But we also have an internal security team that reviews every single PR that goes into a minor release to make sure that it actually is doing what it's supposed to and doing so in a safer way. But even then, we know that we make mistakes, and the people writing the code shouldn't always be the only ones to review it. So at every major release, we kick off a massive third-party security audit, and that audit for 2.0 is actually concluding right now. I've been told I can't tell you how many severe issues have been found, but it fits on one hand. And we're not going to release the RC of 2.0 until all the security issues have been resolved. And after the RC, then we go to stable, and then we continue this process of verifying the security of the project. And I think one of the takeaways that we try to communicate for people building with Tauri, or anything really, is just use the stuff you need, right? Don't bring the entire universe into your project if all you need to do is a to-do app. It's really important to think about those things. We also provide a system for signing updates. Basically, I wish I could trust Microsoft and Windows and Apple and iOS and all these companies with code signing. It's actually a kind of a scam. Heard it here. So because we're not sure we can trust these entities, the certificate signing authorities, we provide a Tauri signing key that actually makes sure that the update that you're shipping to your users is signed by the same entity that made it. Whether that's a CLI on a local machine or in your CI, it's just important to make sure that the consumers have this sense of security that the code that they're getting is coming from the person they expect it to be. Now, again, this is simple. Mac OS, Windows, Linux, iOS, Android. Right now, we already have prototypes working on watchOS, Vision OS, and Xbox. I didn't put them here because they're not stable enough, right? I can't talk about them. They'll probably all land in the 3.0. Why do we have 75,000 stars? We thought about that. Why are we in the top 100 most starred projects on GitHub? And I think it has to do with the fact that we're trying to be agnostic. In our community, people from React and Vue hang out, talk to each other, solve problems that are common to each other. And I think that that agnosis is important for what we've been doing on the front end. And now this year we're working on putting that agnosis into the back end. So if you don't like Rust, you can use Dino, you can use PHP, you can use Python. We won't care. We're going to provide you with the mechanisms to build your apps the way you want. There's a lot of other projects out there. There's Flutter, React Native, Electron, Rails, ICE, NativeScript, Neutralino. And I think that we're coming from a place where there's just general dissatisfaction in the developer tooling out there. And we think that we've solved it for some of you. Maybe others want to try it out. Happy to get into that conversation later. But the repository is really healthy. The code base is constantly being contributed to from all over the world. If you notice, a lot of little European dots in there, which makes me happy. But like the big news that dropped this week is that the office of the White House in the United States said it's important to make software memory safe. And like, this is something we've been talking about in the Rust community for a long time. If you think back to the past 40 years of native app development, a lot of it has been done on the basis of C and C++. And the diagram on the left is the vulnerabilities that are based on memory that have happened in Chromium, right? There are so many constant vulnerabilities in Chromium that it should scare you. And it keeps on happening, and it's because the language isn't memory safe, because there's always a problem between the keyboard and the chair. The Rust compiler is there to help you make sure you're not making those kinds of mistakes. And similarly, Microsoft has also disclosed memory is the thing we just, as humans, get wrong. I can't remember why, but I think it might have to do with us not being machines, right? So there's a number of people out there building with it. I think the big headline from the past 3 months was that Fig.io got acquired by AWS. Space Drive, AppFlowy, Kino AI, Kodi, Gitbot, these are just like kind of friends. So I know there's a lot more. Check out our awesome Tauri repo on GitHub if you want to add your project or see others. And we also have a kind of showcase channel on our Discord if you want to look around and see what people have been doing. Okay. All right. So this demo, you know what? I'm just gonna go for it, I guess, right? All right. So what I'm going to do down in this console at the bottom left is I'm going to start the desktop developer mode, and as soon as it finishes compiling, it should pop up a window. There we go. Now, I'm connecting via my phone to a remote server of the Electric SQL company because we collaborated and made a white screen of doom. Come on, baby. Oh, I know why. I lost my 4G. That's why. See, 1 second. Basically, the demo's goal is to connect to a remote database so that we can use Tauri in the browser, well, use the app in the browser, on the desktop, on the mobiles. There we go. So what we have here is basically a linear light, and I'm just going to create a new issue. Hello from desktop. Hi. Okay. That works. Great. So now I'm going to go to Chrome. Oh, shit. It's already there. Okay. Hi. Seems good. I go back to the desktop. All right. So I now have shown that we can interact with the app on the web and on the desktop, which is basically the first part of this. I also wanted to show you again, I was mentioning before about HMR. So I don't like the word issue. I'm just going to call it fun stuff. And I broke it again. Come on, Nova, help me out here, girl. All right. All right, so we have fun stuff back up, and I'm just going to skip ahead to the rest of the demo and not be sneaky. I'm just going to start the iOS. Demo. Now, it's restarting a lot because as I kick off the iOS app and then the Android app, come on. I love Little Snitch. Come on, you gotta love it. It's me. Oh, okay. It's me. And you can see that this is all working at the same time. Okay, I guess I have to try the Android demo as well. Wish me luck. So there's the iOS simulator. There's the Android simulator. The desktop is back. And it's gone. I'm just glad I didn't try to do it on my phone. All right, so we're connected. Hello from desktop, it's me. Hi. Seems like we have mobile, desktop, and web all working at the same time, which was kind of the goal for this. So I'm just going to end the demo before my computer starts on fire. And anyway, the demo was together with Sam from Electric SQL. Lucas and I put it together. I don't know. I love my my emotional support crab, but I've just decided one of you lucky people out there is going to be able to take her home with you and cuddle with her because, you know, she needs a new place. I'm happy to represent my company, Crab Nebula. We're involved in Tauri deeply. We've done about 1,200 hours since October. We've built a distribution network for Tauri apps, and if you do need support or you're interested in learning more, hit me up. And thank you, everybody. Danke, gracias, merci, bedankt. Ciao.